Welcome to another episode of The Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ron Swallow.
I'm Ed Greer, and today we have a great guest. You've already heard him in the last couple weeks if you were a Patreon subscriber, which I don't see why you wouldn't be. Go to patreon.com/The Greatest Pod and get on there. And you will have heard this guy's dulcet tones. He talked about The Batman with me probably 50 minutes after I'd seen it. We did a podcast. He is a pro wrestling commentator, a comedian, an actor, and an author.
I did write legally distinct superhero erotica professionally for a time. So I guess I am an author.
But anyway, please give it up for your man and mine, Erik Barnes.
How are you?
How am I? That could be a metaphysical question on its own. How are any of us?
Yes.
I didn't expect such an introspection from Captain Erotica over here. Jeez Louise.
Well, I'm not Captain Erotica. It was a gig, and I said yes to it. And so, if you see any short stories by a pseudonym of Snack Napier, that's me.
So yeah, we've known Erik Barnes for years and years. We've done shows together. We've done comic book conventions together. And he came up with this idea to talk about superhero teams.
Love me some team books, gents.
And it's
team books.
It's very easy for us to ask you like why, but I'd ask you your first team book you got into, and yeah, was it because they were a team, or were you lured into liking team books through a book?
Okay, the very first team book that I got was I think it was Mark Waid did kind of a reboot origin of the Justice League, all of them like getting together and all that, and that was probably the first one I liked, just because I was getting back into Batman and so on, but I was like, well, there are some other characters out there. I like this writer. Let me take a peek at that. And then that's kind of what kickstarted my love. I always had kind of a love for team books before I got into comics in general, just thanks to the good people of Fox Kids. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the X-Men, but in terms of books themselves, it was that really kickstarted my love, and I began to like, oh, okay, well, I'll read some JLA stuff, and that bled into, well, let's read the Avengers, since that's Marvel's JLA, and then I got into everything begets into something else. It's like, oh, Batman's in the JLA, but I hear he leads this team called the Outsiders. So I start reading the Outsiders. And then I read Nightwing leads his own version of the Outsiders. And then with the Avengers, there's like the Dark Avengers, and then the Secret Avengers, and then the Mighty Avengers, and all this split off stuff. Then you get into like, the indie books, indie at the time. Or indie-ish at the time, like, Wildstorm with The Authority and Stormwatch, and I could just name them all, and then JSA. And I think the thing that appeals to me about them is I'm a sucker for an ensemble. As much as I do love individual superhero books, there's something nice to be like, okay, I get that character. Let's move on to the next one, or just see what conflicts and dynamics and different relationships could be within a team.
Everybody understands that whether you're at the workplace, whether you're in a sports team, that they're going to clash. Yeah. There's going to be drama. There's going to be story. One of the best stories you can see is weirdos coming together.
Oh, yeah. It could just be like The Office. Keith Giffen's Justice League International. His version of the Justice League and Justice League Detroit was all kind of tongue-in-cheek workplace comedy stuff.
I think the whole workplace comedy thing is part of it when it's adults, but when it's like teenagers, there's all this extra hormonal stuff. You know what I mean? And there's all this extra there's all this extra drama because they're just starting their lives, and part of just starting their lives is getting together with like-minded people and making sure you're not outcast or whatever. And I'm talking about Teen Titans, X-Men, those kids, the Runaways, any type of young person team there's that added element.
Champions,
champions, even something like Cloak and Dagger,
something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well. By the way,
yep,
the Scoobies,
that Buffy's not a lone person. That's a team.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost a superhero team in a lot of ways. Almost all of them get powers.
Well, and on a long enough timeline and on a CW/WB/ whatever show, everybody becomes super. Like, oh, you were a doddering a baby deer like 1 season ago. You could be Black Canary now. Fuck it.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just do this.
The Flash being a big offender in that regard.
Oh, you mean my man Vibe?
Oh, that's what. Yeah, Vibe. It's like this. I'm just nerdy and I talk too much. And then by season 4, he's just. But that's character. But to your point, that's character growth and character evolution. And one of the best ways to do that is have that character bounce off the others in order to kind of learn something about themselves or get harder. I mean, X-Men, right? How many, Kitty Pryde, Armor, how many of these youngsters were taken under the wing of Wolverine to turn from these meek little teens into a more badass form of themselves over time? So it's that type of thing that makes team books to me more interesting, putting different ingredients into the wok and just seeing what comes of it.
Well, yeah, let's talk about why the teams generally exist, because I think that's the most interesting part. It's like, first of all, the JLA only existed to get them together in some stupid ass playhouse. From what I've seen and what I've read, it doesn't seem like they worked really hard on a central threat that drew them together. Anything. It was just like, we're a bunch of super dupers and we're playing house and certain and obviously this wasn't the beginning JLA adventures, but some of the ones right after the beginning were relegating Wonder Woman to being like on the phones and shit. Like Wonder Woman was hella working the
she
phones.
Was the executive assistant of Justice League for a long time because of the 1950s.
I'm not trying to pick that battle. I'm just saying, when I look at something like the Avengers, I just gotta say, old Stan and Jack tried to figure out something that would vex all of their heroes. And it turned out to be another one of their heroes. So they got all their whole line fighting one of their heroes, putting each other over like crazy. And then they resolved to be a team at the end. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody's beating that. That's amazing. So the Avengers are super fresh in their own way. But then when I was growing up, they weren't the dopest team. People were fucking with the X-Men so much more than them.
X-Men and Justice League are literally the only teams I know that I can remember when I was young that I specifically went after to read. Mm-hmm. Like, literally, I mean, I read all those other things, but I remember specifically going, I want to read JLA and I want to read X-Men.
Yeah.
More than like the Avengers is an afterthought for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because for the longest time, Ed, you mentioned how it was the heavy hitters when they first appeared, and that's what it was. And then eventually, by the time, all of us old dudes, when we were in our teens, the lead Avengers was like Black Knight, the Vision sometimes. All these, with all due respect, kind of no-name C-level groups, and then Brian Michael Bendis said, nope, A-listers. And,
well, you were disparaging Avengers, dude. I came up when, it was Black Knight, Dr. Druid.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, Dr. fucking Druid, dog. Get the fuck out of here.
What is even his powers? Does he cure disease with druidism? What is going on?
I think he's with Dr. Strange, but not as much.
Yeah, he was a low-level mystic, and he had a bunch of parlor tricks from, like, mentalism. Like, he could, like, move so slowly you can't see him depart. Weird shit.
He's with a supervillain. It's like, I sense someone... I sense an M in their name. Maria? Is it Maria?
He's like the guy from Psych, but in the Avengers.
Yeah. Ed, to your point, you're absolutely right about the start of the JLA. That's why they did like the little reboot that I read as a youngster and several others in which like they formed together to fight Starro. That's their in canon origin, and not their initial book in which we're like we just hate crime together. Let's help each other. Wonder Woman, did you bake cookies for everyone? Yeah,
we're gonna be plenty hungry after beating up Starro.
Oh, man. Yeah, yes. It actually was Starro. That's the in canon.
Do you guys count Fantastic Four as a team? Or
Yeah.
Are they a family drama? Does family count as a team?
I see that as interchangeable. Because eventually, the Titans end up kind of being a chosen family dynamic. Same with the Runaways and various others. So I think it all depends on how the relationships are handled in the books.
But you raise an interesting point though in regards to the Fantastic Four, as many times as they've broken up and went their different ways, they're family, so they kind of can't.
Yeah.
In the X-Men or something like that, it's interesting to see the people who decide that this is their family and they can't quit them. The people who can't quit coming back to the fucking Titans, the people who can't stop being outsiders after these last 30 fucking years. Black Lightning's raised 2 daughters. He's a fucking congressman and shit. He's like, that man's like, hey buddy, I need you to come to a back alley with me. Put your very tight suit because you've gained weight eating presidential crumpets. Come over here and be my right hand man.
Presidential crumpets.
It's just so weird that there's always Batman is a lot of characters in the DC universe is X that they can't quit and they can't say no to.
I mean, are you going to say no to Batman?
No. Maybe once, not twice.
Come on.
I mean, if Batman shows up and is like, hey, Ron, I need you to fight crime with me, I'm going to be like, well, you're crazy because if you need me to back you up, you will die. Maybe you should have hit me up when I was younger and more influential, like you do with your other children.
Dude, but I just envision you at 23, doing a sick kick flip and getting shot in your ass. You know what I mean? I don't know what the difference really is. I got killed faster because I got there faster.
Batman is smart enough to know your limitations, though. So
that's a good point. That's a good point. He's like, I'm going to need you to make jokes and distract them. And then
or I need a body. What?
Oh, okay. I got you, Batman.
You won't get hurt. I just need you to stand around.
I'm trying to throw something at the Joker. You went about 170.
About 170, right?
And then he throws you and he's like, that's more like 185, bub.
You're an ex-skater. You can bounce back. You've been thrown before.
Yeah.
Was it gnarly?
It's at this point, I'd like to remind you all that I never skateboarded. I rollerbladed, and I'll not have you say that I kickflipped, okay?
I apologize.
So I do support it being gnarly. I do support that.
You did a less popular trick before you got shot. I understand.
I did a trick you wouldn't know. Yeah.
See?
I did a kind grind.
So I was thinking about all the people who can't leave. Are there certain teams where they cease to be that team once you take out one member? What are some of those teams? Because I would love to explore that real quick. I think the Fantastic Four, honestly, is one of those. I know that's probably not popular because they have exchanged Ben Grimm for Jennifer Walters, aka the She-Hulk. They've traded, they've had Luke Cage on their team. They've had Spider-Man on their team. A bunch of different people have cycled in and out, but without one of them, to me, it's not the Fantastic Four, and I don't take it as seriously. Same with a fucking Avengers team that doesn't have Captain America on it, or a Captain America that's an old man or something. I'm like, stop it, fuck you. I don't need that. I don't need to watch this. I don't need
enough of this frivolity.
I mean,
especially for Avengers and for JLA, if they don't have their big three showcased in either book, it's quote unquote not real. If there's no Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, it's not Justice League. If it's not Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, it's not the Avengers.
Which is interesting because that the first superhero team was basically the Justice Society of America.
That's right.
So, and those...
One of my favorite books, too.
It's really good. it was made to be a team book. Justice League, just like you said, was kind of not necessarily meant to be a team book per se, as much as like, hey, let's see if we can get everybody to pay attention to all these big hitter superheroes. This is a team of interesting, golden age heroes. We got Flash, we got Green Lantern.
My man, our man. I'm going to take me a pill. I'm going to whoop your ass for 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Then I got to go.
Yep. Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Spectre?
The thing I love about Jeff Johns' run, Justice Society of America, and why that I really enjoy that team book is because it's multi-generational in the sense of like you have the old, the Flash is like in his 50s and 60s, and the Sandman and so on and so forth, and they're either brand fresh heroes that have taken the mantle of their previous colleagues, or they're their own thing, and they're just like, well, we got to raise this, got to raise these kids up right, and they're embracing the new way of doing things while also lending their experience onto this generation, like Mr. Terrific or Star Spangled Girl, Stargirl, and so many others, Atom Smasher, and it creates a little going back to the whole family dynamic. It kind of is reminiscent of a multi-generation household in which you have your nuclear family, you have mom, dad, kids, but you also have grandma and grandpa and Uncle Steve living upstairs. Yeah. And it was I don't know. I really enjoyed that dynamic of it, and the closest thing to that in my recollection on the Marvel side is X-Men.
So let me ask you, what attracted you to team book?
In terms of books, it was financial. I could either read a Batman story, or I could read a Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Red Tornado, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Black Canary story, and they're both $20. So I'm getting more superhero. As a kid, I'm like, I'm getting more superhero for my buck. And the same with that, and the same with X-Men too, is that like, oh man, I get to see all these different mutants with all these different powers and all this type of stuff to discover. So it's very basic, but as a marketing tool, you can't deny the result. It worked on me.
I hope the people who have to draw team books get a fucking bump as far as like their pay, because like and a bump of cocaine so they can work all night trying to draw these motherfuckers, because like compositions, like, dude, that's one of the things, and I'm just gonna go art nerd here for a second, but like straight the fuck up, people who don't draw have no fucking clue how hard it is to draw a bunch of idealized super people in interesting poses, in the proper perspective, framed compositionally well, and spaced appropriately for you to put lettering in between to denote what they're saying, and caption space and shit. No fucking way. That's hard. That's why you notice how most amateurs, they do a fucking book. It's like Jiminy, the badly drawn thing. Where does he live? The fucking Australian outback. No backgrounds. Fuck it. You know what I mean? That's how most people do it.
He lives in the sky.
Yeah, when it's up to them, that's what you draw. Oh, you go over to corporate America, you get up in DC or Marvel, it's like, see, Wolverine's lighting a cigar, Storm is watering some plants with her powers, Jubilee's doing a flip, Gambit's dunking a basketball, Psylocke is coming out of the pool, and 15 other motherfuckers. Descriptions of shit.
And then you have to draw the normal people nearby, too.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You have to draw the bus boy looking at Psylocke's butt, all that shit.
Yeah, and that's why, by the way, you should praise and at the altar of George Perez, because that guy drew team books better than I think almost anyone. Enjoy it,
and he did so very lovingly.
Yeah,
like you could tell he gave all the shit. A little sideboard. I'm glad we're able to kind of give him his flowers as he, is on his way out to whatever's next.
It's to visually, as far as profile, or rather, profile, or what's that, silhouette. You got to be able to tell each of these characters from each other by just their silhouettes. That's one of the main things when you're trying to build these teams. So once you've done that, you have to go into like setting their personalities apart. And I always loved that, like in the X-Men, there were some pretty simple setups. Like, I don't like this animal man that's hitting on my girlfriend. I don't like this guy because XYZ, you know, he's repressed. I like this animal man. He comes from the woods. He's weird, but he's cooler than my boyfriend. They set up some very simple dominoes and let them tumble for like 40 fucking years. It's pretty. Chris Claremont's running the X-Men is kind of perfect.
And the other thing team books can do is they could take long stagnant characters and revive them into new life, or give them the room to flesh out. I mean, you know, Wolfman and Perez, going back to that, they're the Teen Titans, right? We never would have gotten Nightwing. Dick Grayson would have always been just this milquetoast, gee golly sidekick character. And it allowed Robin / Dick Grayson / Nightwing, whatever you want to call it, to grow and to thrive. Along with all the other sidekick characters. You started to care about them as people and also be able to identify them outside of their connection to whatever legacy character they were following, whether it was Green Arrow or Flash or whomever. And it also provided sort of a fresh slate for them to be like, okay, well, we don't know how Kid Flash and Robin interact with one another because they never did before this. So what's their dynamic going to be? You know, introducing Cyborg and Starfire and all these other new characters in order to kind of flesh things out. And as Ed described, create simple dynamics, especially in the teen space, you know, hormones raging, exploring of bodies, and etc. And in which, you know, have these characters kind of do different will they, won't theys, and then sometimes they will, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. And if it does, how does it affect the rest of the team? If it doesn't, how does it affect the rest of the team?
Raven and Beast Boy.
Yeah.
Well, dude,
or Changeling.
Oh, yeah, yes, Changeling. Oh, Jesus.
Beast Boy was an upgrade.
But in Teen Titans specifically, because I definitely know that people are going to want us to talk about Teen Titans at least as much as we talk about X-Men as we start narrowing down these super cool teams. I think a thing about the Teen Titans that was super fresh, as you said, that it gave Robin a place to mature. But I think one thing I think about with him and Corey's relationship, Starfire, I honestly, out of all the people they've had him, will they, won't they with, that's the one. To me, that's the one. Because to me, and this is like some weird dumb shit, but like, to me, they're the Batman and Superman of the future. Like when there's a desolate whatever.
Okay.
It's going to be Nightwing and Corey, like just as the badasses at the end of time. Because they're badass, dude. I went to DC offices and I battled Markia McCarty in this like nerd debate show that was on like DC's YouTube channel or whatever. And so she had Wonder Woman and I had Starfire, and we were supposed to battle to see who would like win that fight. Now, obviously Wonder Woman, canonically, power wise, plot armor wise, adventure wise, is just trouncing Corey. But I was able to make a great argument about Corey's specific set of powers being able to fuck with almost anybody. And she's a real deal powerhouse, especially in the comics and in the different iterations. They can't really make her as powerful as she actually is. She kind of just burns stuff. But like in the comics, she's fucking with Wonder Woman and all those and Big Barda and all them. She's badass for real. And I just think her and Dick surviving it all. I always pitch Apocalypse Comics. I always pitch the future slate of comicdom. I love Batman if he's dead and it's just Cassandra Cain. I love the Teen Titans if everybody's dead and it's just Dick and Corey flying it out of space.
And at the risk of sounding like gross comic book guy, they're the ones that have the best sex life in comic books, right? Right? Those two?
For sure.
Both are super sex positive.
Yeah.
And willing to experiment. I mean,
for sure.
And they genuinely care about one another. So.
And Dick is very flexible. You know what I mean? So it's like all types of shit can go on.
Yeah. He's not afraid to role play.
100% he's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And he's
And,
not
well-
intimidated by a powerful woman either.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask real quick, as we look at why these teams are dope, a big part of it is picking good villains for them, because as a whole team of people, for it to not be just a clubhouse full of fucking assholes, you have to have opposition, and you have to have opposition that sharpens your blade or changes you or whatever. And I think X-Men is probably just X-Men is aced at a lot of those tests, but I really want to look at Teen Titans in regards to, like, my man Deathstroke has survived the test of time, I think, because of his adventures fighting the Teen Titans. He in getting beat by them, he got put over and over again. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, he was. He graduated, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most modern fans just think of Deathstroke as a Batman villain at this point, and a smart one too. And it all started in the Teen Titans books. In terms of JLA, it's very much Monster of the Week. It feels like, but there's some
Dark Side.
There's some team books like Next Wave, in which sometimes the biggest enemy is the team itself. In terms of, like, it's a big bad and all that, but fuck, we gotta work together, otherwise we're just doomed.
Doesn't that come into Suicide Squad comics too? Like, just we suck. We're a bunch of assholes who suck. Listen, and now we got to work together.
We all agree that we should not be together, right? But we're all we got. So here we go. But to your point, Ed, strong villains, sometimes the strong villain in terms of X-Men, we have Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and Mr. Sinister and all these enemies that end up becoming members of the team or friendly with them at some point.
That's true.
But their biggest enemy is society. And that's what unites them all together, is like, no, we gotta be together, because if we're separated, we're fucked. And you can argue that Runaways has a similar concept, but their concept is, we're the kids of supervillains. We're all we have. We're the only. It's kind of like, in a weird way, you know how, young celebrities, right? Former child stars, they all end up, even as adults, becoming friends with one another, or at least know one another and help each other out, because they are experiencing something that very, very, very few people have also experienced. So that links them together, and that creates a bond that they can't just recreate with other people. So Runaways explores that concept, in that, listen, I also know that my parents are supervillains, so if you need to vent about something, we got that,
Dude, I always thought Runaways could have been a really great movie. As a series, I was really like, you guys, this doesn't stretch this far, honestly, because if you stretch it all the way, then you guys are just superheroes, and you're superheroes who fight your parents. Like, I don't think I could write down something lamer than that, honestly. I don't understand why anybody would want that to be but if your parents are uber things who've hidden some of your abilities from you, even, and different stuff like that, and over the course of 2 hours, you learn who you actually are, and you reject the yoke of their oppression, and you overcome them, and it's over. That's a story for your fucking ass, man.
Yeah.
One of the arguments with Justice League is like, okay, well, why do we care about anything when Superman can take care of everybody?
But some of the best JLA stories are the ones that tackle that subject. And Superman can't be everywhere. And that's Superman's argument. It's like, I can't be everywhere. And on top of that, my decision isn't always the right one.
Oh, Soups with the good thoughts and the...
See? So
not being egotistical.
Well, so that's the problem I have, is that Superman is never a bad character. He's just poorly written a lot. That's there are great Superman stories out there. One of my favorite team books is also Great Lakes Avengers. You've heard of Squirrel Girl, right?
Yeah, I love Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, that's pretty much after she debuted in that one Iron Man comic. That's where she went. She was a part of the Great Lakes Avengers, which is an Avengers team that's never acknowledged as an Avengers team. There is Flatman, who is just, flat, like he turns 2D, and he looks he looks like a red-haired Mr. Fantastic. There is, I would say, a modern-day problematic character named Big Bertha, who is a model as her alter ego. It turns into a heavy-set, immovable object, and
like the Blob.
Your words.
Well, because the Blob's immovable and he's got like
I know,
gravity powers. It's not just that he's very heavy; it's that there's a gravitational aspect to it.
She has been her character has been rehabilitated.
Awesome.
And then there's Mr. Immortal, who just dies and can come back to life. They sometimes add a new hero, but that hero just dies nearly immediately or just quits. It's sort of like a teen book parody, and it's really fun and enjoyable. And then you have J. Michael Straczynski's Squadron Supreme, which is like, what if it was The Boys is 7 before The Boys existed, which I found to be very interesting and was cut off before its time. But through modern day eyes, it could be seen as a little bit edgelordy.
That sort of thing in Marvel wasn't done very much. That J. Michael Straczynski getting to have his own universe to play around in that didn't have to worry about continuity or whatever.
Yeah, and then they brought it into the Ultimate Universe, and it just
well, but you know what it is? It's because they are DC characters done the Marvel way, and when you take DC characters done the Marvel way and put them into the actual any version of the Marvel universe, be it 616, 616A, 6118, whatever the fuck, it doesn't work because DC shit doesn't work in the Marvel universe. They're different. They have different physics almost.
It also didn't help that JMS's run was a Max line, so it was very mature, and then it lost its teeth.
Yeah, well, of course.
They tried to make it,
How about who are some kind of like not well-known teams before we head into the best teams as we close out here? Who are a couple of not super well-known teams that you think would be like good to talk about, even if it's like independent or Image or any of that type of thing. Authority, for instance.
I was going to bring them up. Yeah, no. Read the Authority there. Promotion.
Well, actually, do two things: read the Authority and read Planetary. Planetary and the Authority are both treatises on superherodom, one from the top and one from the bottom or the shadow.
Yeah, and but the one thing about the Authority is that it does have, a little bit of Justice League type parallels in terms of their headquarters is in space. They have a Batman per se and a Superman per se, and they're homosexual lovers. In fact, they're married. And keep in mind, this book came out in the late 90s, early aughts.
Yeah, that's ballsy.
So that's a big thing. But also, they do a great job of not promoting it this way, but it also asks the question, what if there were good fascists? In terms of because they claim they're like, we're the Authority. If you fuck up, we're going to fuck you up. Why? Because we just have the power to do so. And if you have a problem with that, step up. So it is a form of fascism.
Absolutely.
In terms of how they rule the world, essentially. They rule the world by being hands off about it, unless, they see some form of injustice. But they consider themselves to be the arbiter of what is and what is not right. So, so if you look at it through that particular lens, it becomes pretty interesting, especially when their version of Doctor Strange is high all the fucking time.
Yeah, they're a heroin addict, and they also they have the Elite 8 or the Elite or whatever, those guys.
Yeah,
that's DC proper parodying the Authority and having Superman beat them with goodness and light and apple pie and shit. So that you kind of affirm the proper messages and shit, which is fucking funny because now there's a book called Superman and the Authority that is basically him taking people from the Elite, taking junior superheroes like Steel's daughter and shit, and forming them together into a Justice League because his powers are going down. To answer your question, Ron,
he's dying.
Well, he's dying, and his powers are so fucked up. He has a Superman mobile, bro. He has to ride in a Superman mobile. It's like that old joke. Man, it's so goddamn cold outside. I seen Superman in a cab. It's like that because he's dying and his powers are going whack. and he needs to gather up the next Super League for him to be
He
able to
has
leave
to
this
make
Earth.
them ready for when he's gone. I know.
Yeah, Superman and the Authority, I think it's called.
Yes, it is. He's a problematic figure, but Warren Ellis is still a good writer. So if you hear that name and you're like, pass, totally understand, totally respect it.
Yep.
But Next Wave is a very good book that I wish could be an animated miniseries, because it's all these C to D list level Marvel. I don't even want to say heroes. I'm going to just say characters that are thrown together by Dirk Enger, who is a Nick Fury stand-in, and they kind of figure out that him and the agents of, I think it's the Agents of Hate, aren't good guys. So now and they're led by Monica Rambeau, who we know, who many casual fans know as another Captain Marvel that wasn't the movie Captain Marvel. And there's Elsa Bloodstone. There's Boom Boom. There is a character known only as the Captain because his original name was Captain Swear Word. It's an expletive that's been deleted.
Yeah.
And we know it's a swear word because Captain America beat him up for swearing at him. And it just contains a lot of meta jokes.
And I would just like to apologize to people who want us to talk more about the Legion of Superheroes.
Yeah.
We're going to have somebody on that really fucking digs it and do all that.
Sorry, I'm just not one of them.
But I'm not one of them either. So when we have this motherfucker on that really likes it, I'm going to have to put a smile on my face like the goddamn Smilex gas.
Oh, Mon-El!
Yeah, Mon-El. Woo, he's allergic to rust, you say? Wow.
Yeah. One major team that we didn't mention. Well, I want to mention two others, and then I'll have you shut me up. One that we probably have omitted, mostly because they were seen as a lesser known team up until their movie, was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
They're huge now, and prior to that movie, no one cared. Except me. It's wacky alien space goofs.
I remember when Yondu had a bow and arrow and he was chilling out with Vance Astro and shit. So I remember the Guardians, at least that version of them. I don't go so far back with the like blue and yellow Star-Lord and shit like that. I don't go back quite that far.
I'm used to them wearing like a kind of a uniform. One book that really sucked into me was a version of the Outsiders that was led by Nightwing and Arsenal at the time.
Yes.
Because it had all of the youthfulness of the Teen Titans without being childish at the time, while also like it was because it was young adults, much like Batman and the Outsiders and all the Outsiders teams before them and after them. The purpose of the group was, now we're not going to wait for crime to happen. We're just going to kill it before it starts. And that was their thing. They were essentially non-murdery super black ops team.
They were like X-Force for their universe and for their level of stuff. I read those. Tom Rainey drew some, and there was like Judd Winnick on the stories, I think, for the majority of it. That was a pretty cool team, and I love to see how people perceive. Anytime I can see Dick Grayson out of the shadow of Batman, which is all the time now. Dick Grayson's his own guy. Everybody loves Nightwing. All the ladies love to look at his butts.
But it wasn't like that at the time, though.
But it's like that was a stepping stone to this era we're living in now, where everybody respects him.
Before we go creme de la creme, I just want to mention Doom Patrol is amazing, and as a TV show and as a book, and you
especially as a book,
do all of it.
Yes, do all of that. The Invisibles.
Shout out Danny the Street.
Yeah, Danny the Street. Oh, the best.
Awesome.
Shout out to Invisibles as well.
Oh yeah.
That's super high concept funsies. Justice League Dark has great moments. I mean, when you have John Constantine, Swamp Thing, and Zatanna just teaming up together to, fight metaphysical nonsense, it's great.
Well, I would really love for more of that metaphysical shit to like get over on me, because I find myself, this is my problem.
The man that hates magic, you want them to try more?
I like metaphysical characters. I hate what they fight because it's always some pussy nonsense. That's my reductive way of looking at it, but that's it. Because to see something that's really cool and interesting and like hardcore as fuck that I could really like get into, fought by those people, and Etrigan too. That's my man. You know what I'm saying? He busts rhymes. He busts medieval rhymes. He's very strong. He can fight people like Lobo. Some people kind of like think he's just sort of an advanced version of the Creeper or something, but he's got real hell powers. He's almost like a Ghost Rider
he's a
of
demon,
that world.
So
you know what I mean?
He would have to have hell powers, for God's sake.
So I'm just saying, like, that I would love to like Justice League Dark. I would love to. I watched some of the movies and I read some of the books and stuff, and I would love to connect with when John Constantine comes in and everybody looks at him because he's the best magician, and he says the Sim Sim Salabim, and the door creaks open and the tentacles come out. I would love for it to mean any fucking thing to me. You don't know how bad I want that to mean anything to me. It just doesn't. But I like all of those characters.
Speaking of Lobo, he was on the not too terribly long ago, a Justice League team led by Batman. That was different.
I never read that. I want to read that. I'm behind on DC. I got to be honest. I haven't read a lot of DC lately.
Part of the problem is a lot of the writing teams writers or writing teams or pair-ups and whatever get changed so quickly, and there's also the need to make everything one universe, to the point at which as soon as it's like, oh, okay, we got this team together and they're going to start adventures and they're gone. You know, like after one or two adventures, they're like, well, we got to change up the roster again. And I'm like, that, you can't really develop good character dynamics in that short amount of space. So it's not like the Claremont days. Claremont wrote X-Men for how many years?
Yeah. We can't even approach that, but I would like for them to at least like set these, many people have said this, the canceled individual we were talking about earlier said this a long time ago. Just have your best and your brightest go ham on these characters for as long as they want to work on them, and then
That's
stop.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Don't worry about connecting it to everything. Don't worry about fucking, because if you have these characters you like, go ham, and these artists and writers go ham, but they also have to keep putting this crossover bullshit into it. It takes down the momentum, like you said, Eric. It just ruins everything. I'd rather read almost anybody good do an out of continuity Batman story than an in continuity Batman story.
Well, that's why the Scott Snyder run worked so well during the New 52, because he kind of was, a lot of the other continuities didn't have to get so mired up in it. So
yeah, I guess that is the negative of team books is it complicates continuity to the 80 millionth degree, because now everybody's got a relationship with somebody, and you got to keep track of all of those relationships and what they do, how they affect their regular superheroing duties. If you really want to do it right.
To Ed's point, it also requires a lot of commitment. Like, the reason Brian Michael Bendis' New Avengers and, the Mighty Avengers and Secret Avengers that were split off and then merged back together was because it was the champion vision of one person. And he just is like, I'm in it for the long haul. These are the characters I'm going to play with. Don't touch them too much. and he got to just play in that sandbox for, what was it, 6 years?
Yeah, it was years.
Yeah, pretty much throughout most of the aughts into the 2010s, I would say. But and it worked. Like, it was a very popular book, and it wasn't just because it had all the major characters in it. It's because he had all the major characters in it, but also stories that invested in those relationships and conflicts, and it just became more grown and established over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. Who do we think the top? I don't know, 5? Are we doing 5 or are we doing 3? Are we going to narrow it down to 3? What do you think, Ed?
I think people. This is gonna shit. I wish we were more popular because this would get aggregated. I think people think that there's a top 5 superhero teams, and I just don't know that that's true. So let's just try it, because I think once you get to the top 3, they're like shitting on everybody else on some level. But I do think 5 is a good number. 10 is way too much. I'm sorry. 10, you could involve a lot of people that are kind of some of the dark horses we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because if I'm making my motherfucking list, Planetary and Authority are on it. And and now I got one last space for the fucking X-Men, and I'm done. If we talk about team as far as like the dynamic is dope, the history of the people working on it is dope, and like the relationships got to mature and do certain things that I liked or whatever. If we're going by that criteria, that would be my list.
Shit, I'm gonna include the boys on mine.
I mean,
not the bad guys. I mean the good guys, like Huey and everybody.
Yeah, that counts.
I mean, and the thing is, in the comic book, people kind of started to, as far as the boys is the shit it's doing and what it's trying to say and shit. In the comics, our boy Derek Robertson drew those. So like in the comics, people have kind of tried to nowadays shit on them a little bit as far as being like immature, being puerile or whatever. But every single strand of DNA that they've plucked out for that show is in those comics some fucking where. It's all interwoven in there. So I want people to put some respect on Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson's name.
I love Garth Ennis. Derek Robertson does amazingly beautiful drawings of the ugliest shit imaginable.
Yep.
But I am one of the people that during the boys' first run, I had to stop because not necessarily because of the gross out content, but mostly, in my opinion, it was okay to quote The Simpsons, like the millennial I am. When do we get to the fireworks factory? Many a time, because it's like, hey, tangent, isn't it funny that the X-Men all masturbate in the same room? It's like, yeah, I get it. Let's just turn it back to the main narrative, please.
Right. Well, that's why it's. But that's what I'm saying. That's again, if it's a great, there's no great comics made into great shit. People need to stop that shit. Honestly,
no.
I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying like it's the perfect thing to make into a show because a show had to focus it. Is all I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah. No, and that's what makes the show good. And you're right. The good stuff that's in the show was, plucked from it, at least initially. And it could be, and the team itself. I love the dynamics, so I can't fault Ron for picking them.
Yep.
But that being the case, they're not. I can't put them in the top 5.
Who's in your? Are we talking like? Are we speaking as arbiters for everyone aside from our own personal?
Well, see, I think we should try to do a somewhat whatever list.
Yeah.
But or whether somewhat so-called empirical list.
We're not going to please anybody either way.
Exactly. No, so I think we should try. I gave my personal ones. I don't have a top 5. The top 3 are the fucking Authority, Planetary, and last slot is the X-Men, who 98% of people listening to this will put as number 1 or 2. So I'm already Johnny Bench over here.
Well, also, I would say that, all these incredibly popular ones, X-Men, JLA, Avengers, it's like, oh, of course, because there's so many different rosters that it's nigh invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
To pick anything else.
That's why my picks are X-Men, X-Force, X-Factor,
Excalibur,
Excretions,
Existentialists,
Extreme
X-Men,
Extreme X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah,
the Incredible X-Men, the Unfathomable X-Men.
Yeah, and the Spider-Verse.
X-Club. X-Club
and
is a real thing.
We didn't count. Who we didn't count as teams? Which just a real quick moment of silence for all of the teams we didn't count that are actually teams that could probably fuck people up. The Green Lanterns.
Oh,
they're technically a team, and they would fuck some fools up. Yep. And they're very They're as popular as that sort of stuff can be.
The Bat Family, Birds of Prey.
Bat Family and the Birds of Prey. I would sick them on X-Force, and they probably fuck them up. They're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Got to give a great shout out to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think we talked about
Thundercats
earlier, but
love them. Thundercats, ho. Yep.
He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
G.I. Joe.
But G.I. Joe would
Cartoon
get
All-Stars to the rescue.
G.I. Joe would get straight fucked up by a lot of these teams, though. Like, I want the Thundercats, the Thundercats with R-rated rules to fight G.I. Joe. I think you'd find a bunch of pieces of Snake Eyes all over the place.
We would find
Super Friends, obviously, darkest team of all time.
The neutered JLA does not count in this argument.
Thunderbolts.
Actually, Justice Like Lightning. I love the Thunderbolts as well.
Yeah, Thunderbolts.
And Shazam Squad made me think you guys played that Thunder Lightning shit. Shazam Squad, that fucking 5, 6 Shazam. Some of them are little girls, some of them are fat dudes. Whatever the fuck, they beat your ass.
Oh, these aren't superheroes, but Rat Queens is a very fun
that's a great
team dynamic book. And if you want something that younger readers can read, The Lumberjanes is a super fun team book.
I've never read that. That sounds interesting.
Lumberjanes is essentially a Girl Scout troop that goes on adventures in a mystical forest and stuff, and it's very fun.
That's up my alley.
Very wholesome.
It's very fun for a 39-year-old straight man to read.
Oh, Deadly Class. I gotta say, Deadly Class. I think. I watch Umbrella Academy as like, how can you do almost X-Men and just sort of mishmash it and weird it out? I don't count it as good, but I keep watching the series on Netflix, and I did buy I got one of the comics and read it, and I didn't really like it that much, so I stopped reading it. But
Gerard Way has fantastic ideas. I don't want. He's not for me to read though. I love his story ideas though.
Oh, he's got his fucking great story ideas, which is why I think that the series is even watchable at this point, because it's extrapolating and doing all this shit. But I just want to say, Deadly Class,
like George Lucas.
Yeah. I just want to say, Remender and Wes Craig's Deadly Class aren't technically a team, but I read probably the first 5 volumes and started getting a little wild. But like, if you read the first volume, find it on Comixology or something like that, check it out. It's just really immersive, good storytelling, man. Don't let the fact that the sci-fi show didn't go over take away from the books.
I have 4 letters that I feel ashamed that I did not include.
Oh shit!
Those letters are BPRD.
Oh yeah, man.
That's actually a really good book.
It's so good, so good.
Yeah, man.
If you're into horror, sci-fi, and that stuff, and I'm a big Hellboy guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but I don't need Hellboy in it. It does a great job on its own.
See, that's nice.
Sans Hellboy.
Yeah,
and so there's a bunch more of the obscure. Just like when you look at team books, just look beyond the ones that we are forced to put into this populist list at the end.
Yeah.
There's so many more out there.
I'm saying that those are bad, but they already got your money somehow.
Which by the way, if you guys have you guys listening have some teams you want to throw out at us, hit us up on Twitter to @EdGreerDestroys, Dorky Swallow. And what's yours?
At Erik W. Barnes.
And yes, please do also follow us, the show, at NerdGoat Podcast on Twitter. Throw all of the you missed these ones and you missed those ones out there, because I know we did. Like we didn't talk about Youngblood. We didn't talk about the Sovereign Seven, Chris Claremont's thing that he owns. We didn't talk about any milestone teams.
Didn't talk about
Blood
the
Syndicate.
Sevens. Didn't talk about the 7 soldiers. We didn't talk
Gen 13.
about
Challengers of the Unknown.
Yes.
So there's a bunch more. The fucking Flying Blackhawks or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, we don't have 5 hours to make a podcast.
I'm not going to let you get away with this. Ed provided 3. Ron, who's your 3?
I mean, look, I'm just gonna go. Look, I like the boys. I'm not gonna. I don't think those are that's the greatest team though. I think the greatest team is. It's got to be X-Men. Sorry.
There's no apologies necessary. Whatever you want.
And eventual, well-written JLA.
Okay.
And then Supernatural.
Right on.
I got you.
Those are
No, you didn't.
That is your top. That's your top 3 teams. That
I'm
being honest.
It really is. And I mean,
for
4
God's
is
sake,
Dragon Ball Z.
that works. The Z fighters count. Yeah. I take that. I'll get that.
All right, Eric, what are your? Did you get yours?
I don't know if I did, but off the top of my head, and it changes all the time, and I'm allowed because I'm a person, and persons are allowed to change their mind at any point in any time, and I don't have to justify it to any of you listeners. That for today, it is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It is the Nightwing-led Outsiders, and I will say, just because it's in my pile and I haven't, and I hope to read it at some point, the Justice League of America.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, you know what? I might have Teen Titans replace. No, I'm sticking with it.
I'm just going to pick those three and just say, read The Authority, read all the stuff that we've previously mentioned if it seems to appeal to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's kind of the purpose of the list and stuff. It's like there's no empirical stuff, but yeah, the most popular of these teams are so popular because they were able to sustain these runs. And I think what's interesting is if you pick up some of these volumes of these characters or you get them for the library or whatever, which you can do very easily digitally. I got to the digital library recently. Just go on your library's website. You can sign up for a library card with your fucking mobile phone number, and they'll send you a link to all types of fucking shit. You can browse the library and get digital copies of almost any book on your phone or your iPad.
Are you serious?
And they let you borrow 21 fucking things. Dude, I am going full Flowers for Algernon Limitless over here, reading all these goddamn books for free.
Support your library, seriously.
Support your library.
It's
How much
amazing.
does that cost money?
No, motherfucker, it's the library. Okay, I'm going.
Thanks to the power of your library card,
dude. I mean, it's a very powerful resource, and you can read up and do a lot of resources. But I think when you go and look at different runs of all these characters, you'll see that the real superheroes are the creators who work on these things. Because there's a definite difference between John Buscema and Tom Palmer Avengers book from fucking 1970 and one from 1984, 88. Mm-hmm. There's different shit going on, man. There's different shit in the zeitgeist. You know what I mean? When you read Black Panther as a main member of the Avengers team, there's a different flavor. When you see the kind of skinny Mark Silvestri Colossus era of the X-Men, or the Outback era of the X-Men, or there's all these different places in each of these books. So it's like, if you do read something that you don't quite like, maybe move 20 issues in the future. You might like that a little better on some of these books. There's people who like Paul Smith that don't like John Romita Jr. That's the beauty of comics. So I just want to give a shout out to the creators. Really make us be able to go, well, what's a good run of this and what's a good run of that, which is why, I mean, both of the ones that I picked as my top two are just single writer and single artist for the entirety of its major run. And I think that's very important that we just kind of acknowledge the people that make these characters good. Mark Waid and Grant Morrison be writing their ass off on some JLA stories. You know what I mean? And Chris Claremont writes some hell of X-Men stories, So it's like giving it up to just when you're perusing these things, look at who's making them. And that's part of why they are the greatest super team. So I do thank you guys for coming in. Eric, I want to give you some runway to plug the shit you got coming up in the days and weeks hence.
The best way to be connected to everything that I do is to follow me on Twitter at Erik W. Barnes. That way you can see what articles I write up on Cracked, or where I'm going to be performing either stand-up or improv. And also follow Wrestling Pro Wrestling. It is a wacky comedy pro wrestling promotion that I do commentary for with friend of the show, Rivers Langley, at Wrestling PW on social media.
And this is where we also like to remind you to rate and review our podcast. Please subscribe on your podcast apps. It brings us into your feed automatically, and it looks good for us, so that eventually you'll all be forced to hear me talk about shoes that save the rainforest, or underwear that cushions your sack. All this.
Could I get a mattress that comes in a box the size of a mini fridge?
Eventually, that is the goal. No.
Okay. Japanese boxes of snacks.
Yes. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Rate and review us. It helps us move up in people's searches, and then they can hear all these great conversations that we're having and be our friends just like you are our friends. And you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/thegreatestpod.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Ron. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of The Greatest Pod.